The day, if you have decided, and apparently a lot of people have, that you want to be mayor of the city of St. Louis, today is the day by which you had to throw, well, the first day where you could officially throw your hat into the ring. And quite a few people have done it, apparently. Jeffrey Boyd, Antonio French, Tashara Jones, Lyda Cruson, Jimmy Matthews, Jamila Nasheed, Lewis Reed, and last but he always runs, Bill Haas, the Board of Education member, or at least former Board of Education member in the city. All of those folks so far have declared that they were going to run for election. And we don't know what the odds are for any of them at this point. However, if you're going to handicap someone in a political race, you need to have Rodney Boyd on your side. We're fortunate enough to have him on the radio this afternoon. Rodney, how are you?
Mark, I'm doing well, man. I know your listeners probably said, didn't we just close the door on all these elections? And the short answer is, no, we didn't. We're starting all over again. Politics so much, we keep an election in front of us.
Yeah, here we go again, huh?
Here we go again. You know, I was talking earlier today, and a lot of people say, well, you know, why is it such a big deal, the mayor's race for the city of St. Louis? Those of us who live in St. Louis and live in the region, we understand why it's a big deal. You know, the city is sort of the centerpiece of our region, and when the city does well, everybody says good stuff about the region, but when the city is, as it is now, having some challenges where we're leading in crime indicators, schools are struggling, all that sort of casts a broader shadow out over our region. So the person that assumes the role of mayor is a critical figure in many of our lives, whether we live in the city or whether we don't. So it's important. It's an important topic. And thank you for talking about it today, which is, as you said, Mark, this is the day that filing opens for the mayoral race. And I do have one bit of good news for your listeners. Unlike the presidential primaries and the other races that drag out over months and months and months, this is more of a sprint. I mean, filing opens today, the 28th of November. It closes January the 6th, right after the New Year, and then the election is March the 7th. And in effect, we will have a sense of who the next mayor will be by March the 7th. So comparing that to the gubernatorial and some of the other long primary processes, it's pretty compressed.
There have been those who've pushed for a shorter general election presidential time frame, like 6 weeks or something like that. I don't see how we'd ever do that in this country.
No, I think the country's too big, too fast, too many people on too many different time zones to compress it. We could probably cut some time off of it, but what we're doing with this mayor's race is because it's a local parochial race. Only the folks that live in the city get to vote, but the impact on who runs the city obviously extends way beyond the city borders.
Well, I know that there were a lot of people lined up this morning. Do you see a favorite early on out of the group that I talked about a minute ago? Maybe Lewis Reed or Tashara Jones or Lyda Cruson?
It's hard to handicap anybody as a favorite because all the people that are running, for the most part, the names you started with, are known political figures. So there's no surprises there. There's nobody that you go, this could be interesting. For example, when Donald Trump ran for president, that sort of shook up everything.
Right.
What you have in this field of candidates is a bunch of known political personalities, and the question becomes, between now and March the 7th, who can convince the voters in the city of St. Louis that they got the best plan for the city of St. Louis going further into the 21st century? As you know, the city of St. Louis has had a lot of positive things that have occurred under Mayor Slade's administration in terms of some sort of an economic renaissance. Downtown is kind of back. You know, when he took office in 2001, people might remember downtown was dead. And it was not a place that people went to for entertainment, work, culture, or to live. And now it is thriving. Other parts of the city of St. Louis, like the Cortex area, for those that are familiar with what's happening along the Forest Park Boulevard, it sort of starts with IKEA and runs all the way down to Kings Highway, is, you know, a couple of $1 billion of innovative new startup technology. So a lot of good stuff happening. Contrast that with the fact that we've got a significant crime problem. Violent crime is up in terms of how people are ranking us, and we've got to do something about that. And the next mayor is going to have to work with the police department to do some invigorative and some new things. But also, I mean, we've got to tackle the education challenges. We've got to tackle the things that keep the economy sort of really taking off, and we've got to attract more families to the city of St. Louis. So Are there any favorites? No, but you mentioned a few. Tashara Jones, citywide city treasurer. People think she's done a good job there. Lyda Crewson, alderwoman from the Central West End, is very popular. Lewis Reed has been elected 2-3 times to the Board of Aldermen. He's a statewide official. He is the third most powerful person in city government today because of the role he plays at ENA. Antonio French has become a very popular alderman, and in the wake of a lot of the unrest, he's sort of been a very social media savvy. Alderman Boyd has fought the good fight in his ward. But these folks are all going to have to now mount the campaign, just like we saw in the presidential and the gubernatorial and some of the other races. They're going to have to put a platform out there. They're going to have to say to the voters, these are the ideas, the policy initiatives that I want to bring into the office of mayor. And they're going to make the case. I'm interested to listen very, very closely as a city resident, somebody that's lived my whole life in the city. Who takes the office in room 200 is very important to me and my family. And so I'm looking forward to hearing the platform ideas, the positions, sort of vetting what people have to say. Unlike most of the people in the city of St. Louis, I'll give everybody a fair shot.
So I wonder, because I hear Jamila Nasheed and, of course, Antonio French became pretty well known, maybe raised their stature some in the community during the Ferguson problems. And when I look at what happened with that Hubbard race down here in the city, where Bruce Franks ended up upsetting her, he had been pretty active in that Ferguson situation as well. I wonder if that aids either of them, or has that kind of died down at this point?
Well, I think it certainly aids in terms of name ID with certain voters in certain neighborhoods and communities. So absolutely, anything you can do to get that earned media, to get your name out there, will certainly help. But this is a citywide race. You've got to convince voters in the north part of the city, central corridor, central, midtown, south, near south, and far south. So the city of St. Louis is a very big and a diverse city. It's not going to break down as simple as people think in terms of black and white. It's going to break down on ideas and policies. There are a lot of people in the city of St. Louis that certainly appreciated the issues that were raised in terms of the hue and cry about the social situation. But a lot of people, when they vote for mayor, that's not what they're looking for. They're looking for somebody that they believe they can put their confidence in at the ballot box, who will lead the city as a whole forward, not just one part of the city, not just one neighborhood, and certainly not just one subset. This city is very diverse. We've got a huge corporate infrastructure in St. Louis in terms of companies that are downtown. We've got neighborhoods that are, in some cases, 2 centuries old, that need help. So people are going to be looking for more than just where were you on one issue or two issues, but can you lead in a comprehensive way? There are some rough days ahead for the city of St. Louis, and I say that because our population has been static, which means the city revenues have been static, but the demands are great and they're growing. And whoever the next mayor is, he or she's going to have to work with Jefferson City, which is super majority Republican. So there's a lot at stake in terms of who takes this job. And it's going to be a challenge for whoever prevails.
Yeah, I keep waiting for whoever the Republican is to come forward. I haven't seen one yet.
You know, it's funny because usually you'll get someone, especially when you've had an incumbent for as long as the mayor's been in, almost 16, 17 years.
Right.
So you would think that if the Republicans had anybody or anybody was thinking about it. So let's keep our powder dry. I mean, I don't know that the Republicans, because the city is 89, 90% Democrat, the Republicans will put a whole lot of resources out there. But I suspect there'll be somebody out there with an R that says maybe what we've seen at the national and state level is an opportunity. And there's some pockets of the city of St. Louis that people shouldn't forget about that are very conservative and vote Republican in the presidential and in the gubernatorial primary. So there are Republicans in the city, contrary to popular belief. They are not the majority voting bloc. But, hey, if you had a savvy Republican candidate that could come to other parts of the city, it would be an interesting thing to see. It would be something that we haven't seen in the city of St. Louis, for the better part of 60 years.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's true. Rodney Boyd, listen, I appreciate your time. Encourage people to listen to Insider Talk. Of course, airs here Sundays noon to 1. And thank you so much.
Mark, thanks. I look forward to continuing this conversation and others with you, and you have a great show and keep doing the good work you're doing, my friend.
Rodney,
I enjoyed spending all night with you on election night. I'm sure the listeners understand what I'm talking about.
I was just about to say that. Thank you. I appreciate it. All right, buddy. Take care. Yeah, we had a great time in here with Rodney and I working the maps, and Tony anchoring the coverage, and Jason Church and Annie Fry, and we just had a great time that night. So that was a good time.